FTGUp is a farmer-led research project to improve real-world on-farm performance of conservation practices in the Midwest. Our farmer-led teams across Ohio and Missouri are designing and implementing projects that track and ensure the performance of conservation practices better generate outcomes of profitability, yield stability, and protection from extreme weather events under working farm conditions that farmers need.
My name is Josh Payne. I farm here at Concordia, Missouri, which is close to Kansas City. We have about 300 acres here on this farm, and my family owns another 500 of conventional row crop ground other places. So I farm here with my sister and my brother-in-law. We have about 1,000 hair sheep, and that's like our primary enterprise is hair sheep. We also have started farrow to finish 60 hogs to be sold into California Proposition C market, so that we'll be able to capture some value-added opportunities for grazing pigs and regeneratively raising pigs. And we also have about 80 acres of chestnut trees planted, so that hopefully in the long term that we can end up with like some high-value tree crop ground along with our pasture. We find that those fit really well together. So I haven't always been a farmer. I started off as a high school teacher right out of college. I taught high school English and was a basketball coach. Funny story, my wife and I walked across Spain. She decided she wanted to move to a small town, so we moved back here, and it came with farming. So I farmed with my grandpa for several years while I taught and coached. Honestly, didn't really like it. It was conventional corn and soy. Spent a lot of time in a tractor, not much time moving around, not much time outside, and it was just something I didn't really terribly enjoy. My wife decided she wanted to stay home when we had kids, so I decided to quit teaching and just farm full time. The farm could make that work economically, so it was just myself and my grandpa. In 2020, I found out that I was allergic to herbicide, so my body doesn't eliminate toxins well. It doesn't get rid of toxins. When my body builds up with toxins, then it overflows in my throat, causes eosinophilic reaction in my throat, which a doctor said eventually if it gets bad enough I will die from. The treatment for that is to induce a coma into my body, which isn't high on my priority list. So we decided I either needed to go back to teaching or I needed to switch the way we farm. So at that point in 2020 we decided that we should start grazing sheep. So we started with 200 sheep. 5 years later we now have 1,000 sheep and 26 pastures that we rotationally graze sheep on. Yeah, so one of the struggles that we find, especially here in Missouri, is the summer slump in terms of forage. So most of our forage here is cool season pastures, cool season grasses, a lot of fescue in this area. And so when you hit that late June, July, August time period, that forage doesn't have enough energy to be able to finish an animal well without supplemental grains. Supplemental grains are expensive, so it would be fantastic if we could find a way to take a cool season pasture and add in a warm season annual into it. That way we can supplement essentially with warm season annual grasses and forages that can be grazed very quickly, very well. They're also full of energy, so then we can provide a finishing quality feed right in the middle of the pasture for them. Unfortunately, that's not easy to do because you're trying to get an annual to grow into a perennial pasture. So we've tried some different methods of it here on our farm. Susan's tried some different ways of doing it with her sheep and her pastures. So our node is trying to figure out how do we go into a conventional grazing system or a rotational grazing system and get annuals established into a cool season perennial forage. One of the most brilliant things about From the Ground Up research project here is that it's designed around real farms and working farms. I know there's a lot of distrust, especially amongst farmers, from big research institutions often. And there's some fair things to that because there's funding that goes into that, but also because those are often done, research is often done in very sterile environments where we're gonna just isolate all other factors and put this in and this in and this in and this in. And that's interesting and it's good to know. But most of the farmers I know are highly skeptical of taking that kind of research and sticking it on their farm. If they know this has been tried by farmers in their area, they're able to come see it, they're able to come do it, they're able to say, hey, like how did that work? And then also a lot of that, so you get the research and says that it works, but then we also have the practical, like this is how we did it. Here's the equipment that we used. So I think there's a high likelihood, at least of people who are asking that question starting to say, starting to say that we'll do this. If they're starting to say, I want to be able to feed my animals, but without supplemental feed, then we can say, look, we've done this research on this farm, you can come and see it. And that's very persuasive to farmers.